So I know we've been preaching about getting content through here, and it's been a little slower than I intended, so my apologies there. But we are moving, we are making progress, and this one's a special one. So most of the tournaments that I play during the World Series of Poker are always at the Rio, so it's always a little bit of a nice change of pace to get away from the Rio, because the Rio is, even though the World Series is exciting, the Rio is just, it's kind of a dump. With that, uncontroversial opinion out of the way, don't get into an uproar about it. We are looking at the Wynn here. I decided to go play an 1100. I think it was a 1.5 mil guarantee at the Wynn, but it was something where it was pretty much in the buy-in range I was interested in playing anyway. It was a pretty similar structure to what else was going on that week, and the Wynn's just nice. So diving into some of the Wynn hands, you gotta just understand that it is a slightly different clientele. Like, there's definitely more, I think, grinders than are at the WSOP. There's not quite the same level of bucket list sort of mentality surrounding the Wynn as there is at the Rio during the WSOP, but it's still an $1,100 tournament during the summer. It's not tough field. And with that out of the way, let's just dive into some of the hands. So this first hand, we are in the very first blind level. We've got 20k in our stack, which I think is basically starting chips. The button in this hand is a seemingly crazy older guy who bluffed into a 3-better in basically the first hand. So he limps. The small blind checks because we're at 100-100, so he has an option, and I check my 5-4 of spades in the big blind. The flop comes down. Flavorful. Comes out 5-4-3 with 2 hearts. Excuse me, 1 heart, 2 diamonds, and the small blind checks. I go ahead and decide to lead it for pot here. The pot's tiny, so the stacks are big. There's just no real reason to bet small here. I go 300. The button raises to 900, and he started the hand with about 12k after bluffing off into queens earlier, so when the small blind just folds, I am pretty happy to put in the 3-bet now. This is a very coordinated board. A lot of his hands have a decent amount of equity against our hand. We can be counterfeit sometimes. We can lose to a flush sometimes or a straight. So I think it makes sense to bump it up now. Plus, I don't figure this is the guy who's going to raise fold the flop that often. So I bump it up to 2.6k, and he shoves. So I think against a lot of players here, we'd be up against a straight almost always, and if we're not up against a straight, it's a set, and if it's not a set, it's like a gigantic combo draw. Not so with this guy. I wasn't too worried. I pretty much snapped it in. He's got the good old 6-3, so he does have some outs. He actually has more outs than we'd probably think. I would wager he's got, 5 outs to trips and 2 pair, plus the open-ended. Makes 13 outs twice, so it is kind of a flip, but the turn is the 9 of spades, the river is the jack of spades, and we managed to stack him. So pick up a few chips there. Let's be honest, it's more than a few. And we move on into the next few levels pretty healthy. This next hand doesn't go down until the 200, 400, 400 level, so we've introduced a big blind ante. We have chipped down a bit, but not a ton. Got 29k in chips, and we open kings in middle position to 1.1k. The button, small blind, and the big blind all call, so we go 4 ways to a flop of 9-7-4, 2 diamonds. Not the ideal flop with kings, but when it checks to me, I decide to c-bet 2.8k, and the button and the small blind come along. The turn is now to 10 of spades, and I kind of hate it, but when it checks to me, I just end up shoving, and I think this is probably a pretty big mistake. I think we can definitely check to evaluate, check to probably check call once, and then kind of go from there. But the problem is basically that when we do this, we pretty much force all worse hands to fold, and most better hands will not fold, so we're kind of turning our hand into a non-bluff that doesn't get value. That's not really what we should be doing. So unfortunately, we make that shove, but it's about 16k effective and 18k effective maybe with the small blind. The button has less. Oh, sorry, I thought it was 16k effective with the small blind, but it's more like 18k. The button calls off 12K instantly, and I already know it's not good, not a good thing for us. Small blind also calls. The button has 10-9 of clubs, and the small blind has ace-8 of diamonds. The river is the jack of clubs, so we actually end up losing to both. So next hand, I am a little bit short here. I shove 6.8K with ace deuce of hearts in middle position, and the button calls off ace king. So not in very good shape here, but you know, we can always go for that rebuy if need be. Have a couple of outs to our name, obviously, but not a whole lot. The board comes out king, jack, 4 with 2 hearts. So it's you know, not exactly what we wanted to see, but could be worse. The turn though is just a 7 of hearts, gives us the win right there, and we win a pot again at the Wynn. So double there to a somewhat healthy stack, and go on to the next hand. Middle position here, who's an active player, makes it 1.1K. There are 2 calls, and I'm in the small moon with ace-6 of hearts. When middle position's active and the other players choose not to 3-bet, I think they tend to be capped. I think middle position shouldn't have like a mega strong range necessarily, so I decide to shove my ace-6 of hearts. The big blind rejams at 16K, so kind of unlucky to probably run into it here. Ends up folding all the way around though, so we get heads up, and he's got the ace-queen of diamonds. So again, not in good shape with this suited ace in hearts, but the flop comes out jack 6-4 with 1 heart. So we flop ourselves a pair, and the lead just have to fade a queen and some backdoors. The turn 4 of diamonds is safe for us, and the river deuce of hearts is safe as well. So we do double, more than double once again to a healthy stack. So just getting it in behind here so far and making it, just making it work. So next hand, 200, 500, 500. We've got 26K in the stack at this time, and early position, who is the most active player, makes it 1.3K. I'm in middle position with red pocket aces, and I bump it up to 4K. The button shoves, and early position just ends up folding, and I call off. The button has ace queen. I didn't note how big his stack was, but I sort of figure it wasn't a huge shove, probably something around 10K, something like that, 20 bigs. Anyway, the board looks kind of nice for us at first. It's ace-6 deuce, but there are 2 clubs out there, so a little bit of a sweat. Turn 8 of clubs keeps that sweat alive, and the river, 10 of clubs, hits, and our aces go down in flames, losing to ace queen offsuit. So kind of brutal one there, but we did kind of put some beats on some aforementioned opponents, so we can't really complain too much. This next hand, you know, I've chipped up in a variety of spots leading up to this, and so it's, you know, I have more chips. I know you guys are always like, how did you get to 50K? Like, that makes no sense. Why don't you have, listen guys, there's already like 8 hands in this video. You don't need another like 8 of me winning 2K at a time, or however the math would work out there. Blinds are 300, 600, 600, 50K in the stack. Middle position opens up to 1.9K. I flat the button with pocket 8s, and we go heads up to ace 9, 7. He bets 2.5K. I make the call, and the turn is the 4 of clubs. He checks. I decide to bet 7.2K. I think that this is probably fine, but like not super necessary. I think we have enough showdown value to just check it down here. But I think in my head, I was deciding to try to get him off of, you know, things like 10s plus, things like king, queen, well, get probably some value from like king, queen with a club. And I wasn't positive that, you know, he would even hold on with like a weak ace. So I'm kind of turning my hand into a bluff, but also willing to shut down depending on what happens, basically. He ends up calling, and I'm sort of starting to regret it now, because I'm like, what if he doesn't take this line with like kings, and what if he never folds kings? But the river ends up coming the 6 of clubs, and it is the 4th club on board. He checks, and I kind of just sense from how he checks that he's not super excited about this run out, not super excited about the 4th club. I do not have a club in my hand, so this is a probably pretty good holding to bluff with now, even though the turn is definitely questionable. So I go ahead and shove for his 20k remaining, and he pretty much snap folds. So nice to get one through there. This next hand, we are at the 600, 1200, 1200 level, 60k in the stack, so right around 50 bigs. Middle position, who's a very active player, you could see a theme developing here, makes it 2.8k, and I have King Jack offsuit in the hijack, and I decided to 3-bet to 8.5k, pretty much just to isolate him. Middle position makes a call, and we go heads up to a flop of ace, ace 3. He checks, I decide to bet 4.5k, and he check raises to 17k. Now, it's one of those spots where, like, I think on a typical board against this opponent, I would just think a flop check raise is very often going to be air. It doesn't really have to be a strong hand, but I just kind of felt like the fact that he called the 3-bet and check raise in a 3-bet pot again, on specifically this board that probably should favor me. He probably just has it this time. There's not a lot of hands that make sense to bluff, so he'd have to be just making a pure bluff if it was a bluff. So I decided to just let it go, not really fight for it. It's a big pot. If I want to fight for it, I probably would have to just jam. I can't really call and then like call down. Like, it just doesn't really make sense. So I do let it go, and he later claims he had ace king. It's totally possible. I don't know if I 100% believe him or believed him at the time, but it definitely could have been. This next hand, 40k at the same blind level. Under the gun makes it 2.6k. Middle position calls, small blind calls, and I call in the big blind with 7-5 offsuit. I don't really think that this is a necessary call. I mean, we are definitely getting a really great price, but our hand is just going to play so poorly. Suited, I would definitely call. 9-8, 10-9, I would definitely call. But the 7-5 off is just, it's just dirty. I mean, the preflop police are just like banging down my door right now. It's just like you can hear them out there. It's not good. Don't get in an uproar though, because we flop 2 pair. The flop comes out ace 7-5, and we're obviously ecstatic with this. The preflop police begrudgingly let us out of the handcuffs and let us go on our way. Checks to under the gun, who puts out a bet. I don't have the sizing here, but we do decide to check raise to probably some large portion of our stack, because the next action is that under the gun just rips it in there. Just rips it in. So we happily call it off. We're losing to a few hands, but not that many. He's got ace king this time, and we do hold on a brick, turn, and river. The preflop police are just sirens blaring, but they can't do anything about it because we just doubled up. This next hand is at the 1k, 2k, 2k level, so a little bit later on, and we've chipped up to 130k now. Very, very healthy. Very happy to be in this tournament at this stage. We open queen jack of clubs under the gun. Middle position calls with 40k in his stack. And the hijack, who's a guy who seems to reshove and call shoves light quite a bit, makes it 16k. I've got, again, the queen jack of clubs. I think it is probably a little bit of an overplay here to go for it, but I decide that because of the sizing involved, like, I'd rather shove basically than call and see the other guy call behind me. So I do go for the reshove, and middle position, unfortunately, kind of nabs us here. He traps us with the jacks, calls it off as well. Hijack has deuces, so we kind of had the right idea with him, but the board comes out 8-5-3-3-7. So can't really get anything done there. Never really connected with the board after the flop. And we ship over quite a few chips in that point. For the end of my notes here, going into day 2, I just have a whole bunch of question marks. So I'm not really sure if that's going to show. Anyway. No bueno. We do come into day 2 with a pretty healthy stack, but could have been better, could have been happier with it. Always can't complain, but you know, we would have preferred to bag like a lot more. So I think we bagged somewhere in the neighborhood of like 100 to 150k here, and blinds coming back to something like 2k, 4k, 4k. So, you know, not out of the running by any means, but not a huge stack to speak of. So remember, if you guys like this video, leave it a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Make sure to sign up on PKC if you're interested in playing online poker for real money. I will also probably be posting some hands that I played from PKC pretty soon. So if you guys have thoughts about format for that you'd like to see, don't want to see, if you couldn't care less, feel free to leave that down below too. And make sure you share this video with a poker friend. A poker friend is a real friend as far as I'm concerned. So I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Everyone's gonna get a bag and a white and yellow copy of paper. The only thing I need you to write down